Hey guys, Hippopotamus here, and today I'm going to be bringing you another video. That wasn't the animation that I was hoping to do, by the way. I was hoping to do like a little chest bump, but apparently I'm doing the wave, so we'll just deal with that. So yeah, this one is what I call the Tinkerer's Scales, and it's a pretty interesting little build. I've just been in a legendary and used it and had quite a lot of fun with it, especially with the fire rate increases at the moment. It's quite interesting. So what I'll do is I'll just go through the build like I always do and start with the specialization. In this case we are using the gunner, and there is a few reasons why we're going to be using the gunner. So to start off with, we have coupler, so every third reload is 50% faster. This is useful because obviously with tipping scales, any downtime that we have with the weapon is meaning that we're going to lose stacks, so this helps to mitigate that just ever so slightly. We have killing enemies grants 10% armor. Now this is absolutely crucial because you will be getting quite a few kills and we are quite squishy. It means that we can sort of gain armor back passively as we have kills, which the 10% is quite nice and I find is quite useful. We also have the hardened armor kit, which gives us 100% armor and 30% bonus for 10 seconds, which is useful because when we push back out of cover after healing, we've got a little bit of armor to play with. Granted, it's not a lot, but it's definitely better than nothing. We don't use the Banshee Pulse on this, so that's pretty much negligible. However, the supply line is the really main talent that I'm taking this for, is because we are going through so much ammunition with this build that to have anything else, we're just going to be running dry pretty much mid-mission. So this is going to save us quite a lot and it's going to be quite useful. So it's going to really help. We have barrage, so the fire rate increases 5% on a kill for 5 seconds. This is going to be useful because we are using talents that modify our fire rate, both increasing and decreasing. So it's going to help at the top end and the bottom end just a little bit. We also have in placement 10% weapon handling, actually synergizes with tipping scales because we do gain weapon handling as we fire the weapon, and this is going to help our reload speed, stability and accuracy. So the main things really just to mention is that we are just using LMGs, so we have a synergizing LMG in the tree here, and we also unlock the large pouch, which is quite useful for this build in particular. Other than that, we have the minigun, which is quite nice. If you pull that out and shoot enemies, you can get armor back with that, and sometimes is useful in a little tight squeeze if you want to use that. And we also have the riot foam grenades that we can use to ensnare enemies and lock them in place, which if you do, and you have the fire rate bonuses that, top end, you're really just going to melt through things really quickly. Okay, so with all that said, let's go and have a look at the build, and we'll talk about the pieces, and then we'll go to the range and do the usual stuff. So for this build, I'll start with my weapons. I am using a Stoner LM8 Lam. I always say this wrong. LAMG. So if I can get my words out, yeah, this is the one that we're using. So I've got 20 ranks of expertise into this. Obviously, the more you can put in, the better. This one comes rolled with LMG damage, damage to targets out of cover, and damage to armor, which is the trifactor of damage. Very, very nice. I also have on here Frenzy, so for every 10 bullets in the magazine capacity, gain 3% fire rate and 3% weapon damage for 9 seconds when you reload from empty. Now considering that we have 325 bullets in the magazine, when we do reload, I think I worked it out at about 96% fire rate increase and 96% weapon damage increase, which yeah, is quite a lot. So this is really going to help, and I'll show you a little tip to help use this to your benefit for enemies that you might not otherwise use it on. Say that if you reload at the wrong time, you're going to lose out. Now I have a way of dealing with this, and I will show you that in just a minute. So for my second weapon, I have an infantry MG5, but this is just a placeholder and we can use anything that we want. I am currently looking for a GR9, but the one that I have doesn't have the right talent on it, and I've had to roll one of the attributes, meaning that it's pretty much useless, so I can't share the talent over. Bit more on that in a minute, but mine comes with 14.8% LMG damage, which obviously we could maximise that to 15 if we like, and then we have damage to targets out of cover and damage to armour. Really, the only reason I'm using this weapon is just because I want the talent to be alpha bridged over, and that is measured. So the top half of the magazine has a 25% fire rate increase, and you lose 25% weapon damage. The bottom half of the magazine has an 18% fire rate, and also has a 30% weapon damage increase. So you're going to lose 18% of your fire rate, but gain 30% damage. Now, why this is nice is because the top half of the magazine, because we've got 300 bullets in our other gun, getting rid of the top half of the magazine is going to help us get to that frenzy bonus just a little bit quicker. And when we do drop into the slower fire rate, we're actually going to be hitting quite hard. So it's really going to increase the punch of the bottom end of the magazine, which is great. For my pistol, I'm using the busy little bee, and there is actually two reasons here, but I will give you the main stats on here first, and then we can talk about this down at the range, I guess, which would be more appropriate. So mine comes with pistol damage and damage to armor. If we had damage to targets out of cover, which I could roll it for, I would. Exotic components are a little bit of an issue, so I'm not wasting them here. So damage to armor is just fine at the moment, but if I could get it, I'd have DTOG. Okay, so the talent is Busy Little Bee, so each shot to a different enemy will give you 1 stack, and we can stack up to 10 times, and this will give you 20% weapon damage per stack that you get, so it's a 200% weapon damage increase if you manage to get all the stacks, which is very, 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 very good. And we also have a little trick that we can do. I'll show you a little bit more about that in just a minute, and I don't think it's intended, I think it's a bug, but we'll go through that in just a sec. So to start, I best probably talk about the mask. So this is from the last patch, it's the Tinkerer, and we're using this for the Alpha Bridge talent. So obviously the attributes are fixed, which comes with weapon damage, crit hit chance, and then we have a crit hit chance mod placed into the mask. And we have the talent Alpha Bridge. So if your primary and secondary weapons are non-exotic or named and of the same type, the second weapon's talent will also be applied to the primary weapon. So we have both talents, which is exactly what we want, but it doesn't apply the other way around. I'm pretty sure you have to switch the gun if you want to, use the guns the other way. You can't use your secondary weapon and have the primary talent. So it does not apply if the primary or secondary weapons talents include weapon swapping. Does not apply if the primary and secondary weapons talents are the same, which you can't double stack. Okay, so with that, I will start with the glove, and then I'll go into the gear set. So for the glove, I'm just using the contractor's glove because obviously it's best in slot. I'm sure there is other things I could use. I could use Cheska here. However, I want the LMG damage, and the damage to armor is multiplicative, so that's a nice bonus there. You can use something different if you so please, but I prefer the contractor's gloves here. And these come rolled with weapon damage, damage to armor, and crit hit damage. So, on with the gear. I guess I'll probably start at the bottom here and then work my way around. So, the thing to do is probably talk about the gear set bonuses. So, 2 pieces give you 30% magazine size, 3 pieces give you 30% LMG damage, and then the 4 pieces where things get interesting. So throttle control. Shoot and build stacks of a max of 50, and each stack provides 0.5% weapon handling and 4% critical hit damage. You lose 6 stacks per second while not shooting, and no stacks are lost if an enemy is suppressed. So, which is quite useful. Okay, so we have, probably should talk about it here, weapon damage and crit hit damage on the bottom here. And on the knees we have weapon damage and crit hit chance. And then onto the chest. So the chest has its own talent, but we'll just go through the attributes quickly. This has weapon damage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. And then we have the talent sustainability. So increase the maximum number of stacks from 50 to 75. Okay, so that's quite nice. And the backpack, we have weapon damage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage mod placed in. And we have the talent Snowball. Increases the critical hit damage received per stack from 4 to 7. I can't quite do the maths here, but I think it's roughly about 300 crit damage that you gain. But whatever it is absolutely insane the amount of crit damage that you get off this. And it's hitting just as hard as my striker build, so I've got to say that's quite interesting. But this has its own benefits and its own ways of doing things that striker can't do. Okay, so for my skills, because I'm very squishy, I'm just running the Reviver Hive. That's pretty obvious because, you know, I've got so little health, and also I do kite a lot of aggro from just spraying bullets everywhere. People are going to start aiming at me, so the Reviver Hive is absolutely a must. I also supplement the fact that I need to hold the trigger down by having a fixer drone, because this will just sit up in the air and fix me while I am shooting my gun, and I don't need to take my finger off the trigger to activate any healing. But yeah, a little bit of passive healing on top of my armor on kill is quite welcome in this case, because we are going to kite aggro, as I've said previously. However, if you want to use a different skill here, that's absolutely fine, totally up to you. I just find that I prefer the fixer drone. I think it synergizes quite nicely with the armor on kill and supplements it nicely. So don't forget, we also have the riot foam grenades that we can chuck at enemies to stick them down and make them stand still. So I will just take a look at the range. Let's take a look at the range here. Yeah, okay. And I'm also just going to go in, and today I will be showing with the modifiers on, because the fire rate, I think everybody's going to be using this right now. So I will just show with the modifiers on, because they don't actually edit our crit chance, crit damage. So with that said, let's just turn off the skill haste, and let's just have a look at our stats. So weapon talents are as follows: Frenzy and Measured. We have Busy Little Bee. For weapon stats, we have quite high crit chance and crit damage, but remember, this is going to be like 300% higher. Obviously, we can't quite hit the cap there, but 50% I feel is just fine. We could take another roll of crit chance, if you're so pleased, and be at 56%, but I've just taken that little bit more crit damage, and I think it's fine. So weapon damage is obviously quite high because we're spec'd all into damage, so that will be reflected here. We have the gear talents Snowball, Sustainability and Abridged. And for our gear set, we have the Tinkerer Mask, 4 pieces of Tipping Scale, and 1 piece of Petrov, which is the named Contractor's Gloves. Armor is very low. Unfortunately, we will need to be smart about how we play, and this means that we will need to head peek and try and stay behind teammates and be back of the bus, basically, because if we try and get up front, unless we have the modifiers active, we are going to kite quite a lot of aggro and get shot at very quickly. A little bit of armor on kill, always nice, you know, 10% each hit, so it's definitely going to do something, and we are getting quite a lot of kills when we are up. Okay, so obviously just quick disclaimer here that if you don't have watch level 1000, you're going to see some different stats here, because obviously you need to get to 1000, so just quick warning, you know, if you don't have that, you're going to see some different numbers there. Okay, so obviously onto our skills, and that's that. So the main things to remember is that we can stick enemies down with the grenades. Don't forget about those, they are quite useful. We can also use our drone to have a little bit of passive healing, because we are going to have our finger on the trigger most of the time. And I think what I'm going to need to do here is I'm going to need to bring a invulnerable target, because we're going to need to build stacks. So to start off the magazine, when we first start, we're obviously going to have one of our bonuses up, which allows us to shoot a little bit quicker with Measured. And then we're going to get into our lower side of the magazine, and we're hitting for around 2.2 in the head, 1.9 in the chest on a crit. But where things get extremely interesting is when we get to the end of our magazine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop there for just a second, because there's a couple of things that I want to show you. So when you play in Legendary, and you see like you know an enemy's coming, like a chunga or something like that, if you stop at the last 8 or so bullets, and then switch weapon and just use the other weapon just for now, until you have a clear line of sight on the enemy that you want to put the big amount of damage on, you can switch back to the other weapon, shoot those 8 bullets off, and get the insane fire rate to basically melt anything that you want. So we're just going to sit with this on a buffer until we see the opportunity to use it, and use our other weapon until we see that window to use it. Obviously, if you know the maps, you're going to know which enemies come out first and where they come out, so that's going to help quite a lot. Map knowledge is going to be a big part of this. The other thing is that is an unintended feature of this build, I'm guessing, is the fact that you can pre-buffer your stacks. So you can see that if we just keep shooting the pistol, we can actually hold on to stacks. So if we build some stacks with our other weapon here, let's just shoot our other gun for a little bit. Okay, let's do a little bit more. Okay, perfect. So now what we can do is, you can see that just by firing the pistol slowly, my stacks are actually going up, and it's almost like you can hold onto your stacks with your pistol that's got like unlimited ammo. And not only that, I mean, look at the damage that we're doing with the pistol, which is absolutely, you know, insane. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to quickly change weapon, and I'm going to lose this bonus because I don't want to give inaccurate numbers. Obviously showing that we're hitting crazy numbers with the bonus up, but it is a possibility. It's something that you can use if you really want to, if you see the opportunity to use it. However, the main damage bonus comes from when we have the low magazine. We shoot this off, and you're going to see and the fact that we have measured and frenzy is going to get us down to like the last 120 bullets in the magazine, which is quite easy to, you know, sort of shoot that off. We can time the bullet, wait until there's one, and when there's one enemy that we want to shoot at, what I'll do is I'll just quickly, okay, switch weapon, fire the bullet, enemy. And I'm also just going to quickly show the top end damage. So we're hitting for about 2.2 in the head, which is good. So hopefully that is something that you've enjoyed. Like I said, if you want gameplay, I guess I could do maybe me playing a legendary. I'm just a little bit tight on time at the minute. I'm studying, and the reason I'm putting this video out is because if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed that one. Hopefully it wasn't too long, but I probably am going to be posting now for a short while. But if I do see anything interesting, I'll try and let you know. And thanks for all the support in the previous one. Cheers guys.